друга всех людей на свете, Джона Фредерика Бейлина. Он вам лекцию прочтет. Он представляет университет Стони Брук, а также совместный университет или институт Санкт-Петербургский и Стони Брук. Он все вам расскажет.
Okay. All right. So there is a microphone. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. Yeah. Good. In the back. Yeah. Okay. All right. If I get quiet, just go. Yeah. So this is our summer institute held every summer here in St. Petersburg since 2003, and there's a graduate of our 2003 institute here. I'll tell you more about it at the end. There are also little information posters like this you can see everywhere. We're on some. You just have to go, if you're interested, you just go to this website, New York Institute, NYSPBRU, right? And you can find out about the faculty, the professors, the seminars, the courses, and the cost, and all of that. It's not very expensive, and there are grants, mini grants available for students from St. Petersburg, which I think not enough for all of you. There isn't even enough space in the school for all of you, but that's okay. Please take an interest in the school. We have linguistics, psychology, cultural studies, media studies, many interesting topics. The students are from Russia, from the US, from Ukraine, from Eastern Europe, from Western Europe. It's a very mixed audience. Classes are in English, but the audience is mixed, which is excellent when you're talking about language, music, politics, whatever it is, okay? So that's my advertisement. And now I'm done. Now, here we go. We're going to talk about, so there's a little bit of Russian on these slides, but you don't need it, right? Okay, so ignore it. Because it's my translation, because in some of my lectures, the audience does not speak English entirely, so I put some Russian in the slides. But the English is the original, so you want to go with the English. So, my field is linguistics, is theoretical linguistics. How many of you here were at the talk 2 weeks ago by my colleague Sabine Iatruvian? Who was here? Were you here?
Formal linguistics.
Formal linguistics. But who was here? How many of you were here? Many of you were here. Okay. So, you know about formal linguistics from Sabine. Okay? I also do this kind of work. Sabine and I do the same kind of work, syntax, semantics, formal linguistics. This is part of a much bigger project, cognitive science. Okay? Hey, come on in. There's chairs here if you want. Best seats in the house. The cognitive sciences since the 1950s, 1960s, with Chomsky's generative grammar, the cognitive sciences have been a major area of research, but not very well known outside of linguistics. So in linguistics, the cognitive approach, the formal linguistics approach, semantics, syntax, what Sabine talked about, is very well known. But the cognitive sciences are interested in much bigger questions of how the mind works, how the mind is organized in many areas, not just language, right? So what I'm going to do today, in 1 hour maximum, plus or minus 20 minutes, is tell you about mental modularity, which is the main idea of cognitive science since the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. A little bit about the language module of the mind, but that's what Sabine talked about, so not too much. And then about music, okay? And how the musical mind is organized, the human ability to perceive music, how that's organized. And then the real questions are, how similar or how different is the linguistic organization from the musical organization? They're different, obviously, but they're also similar in many ways. And this is controversial in the cognitive sciences. You know, where you go to conferences and you speak, you say your position and people throw tomatoes at you from the audience, right? Because they don't like your position. It's a very controversial stuff about how connected music and language are. Are they the same? Some people think they're exactly the same. What? Yeah, on some level. So I'll talk about that, okay? And then the differences. All right, here we go. So, modularity of mind is this view of how your mind is organized. It started with Jerry Fodor, who taught at our school last year, and 7 years ago. In a book, 1983 book, and Ray Jackendoff, who has lectured in St. Petersburg also many times. And the idea is this, that every ability you have, mathematical, counting, the ability to see, to organize vision, language organization, musical perception, everything, concepts of the world, logical reasoning, all of those things are called modules, right? Like the Russian word, modul, right? And each module is a separate part of your mental organization, separate. And Fodor's idea was something like this. There's a module for concepts, there's a module for three-dimensional structures, like I look at you and I see you in 3 dimensions. But why? Right? How does that work? There's language, sometimes they're called organs, like the heart and the liver and the stomach, mental organs. Because the heart and the stomach also have different functions, right? But they have similar pieces. So it's a mental biology, really. And this is a kind of a biological approach to cognition. Very different from the tradition that you have before the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, which is a behavioral model, where everything really depends on the culture surrounding you and the context surrounding you, right? And that we learn by imitation. This view says most of what we know is not learned by imitation. It's specific to the human mind, it's kind of biology. Like children walking. Children cannot walk when they're born, right? But they all start to walk when they're 1 or 1.5 years old, right? Some cultures think you have to teach the children to walk. You know, you take them there every day, you move their legs, and then one day they do it by themselves. But you don't have to do that. It happens automatically at a certain level. Same with all of these things. They're biological functions which mature and they come about at a certain point, okay? Here's a different picture, more recent picture from Jackendoff, where you say vision, light comes in, hits the eyes, there's smell, concepts. You can access concepts through smell, through sound, through language, through vision. There's creativity, musical organization, dance, everything, right? All of these things are separate modules. So we do not have one general intelligence. We have many separate little working machines which interface with each other. And the question of cognitive science is, how do the interfaces work between so each of these arrows is an interface, right? And that's what cognitive science is interested in. Okay? So here's the thing. Come on, there's good seats here, very good seats, most expensive. VIP section. Sorry. You don't have any choice. So, look, think about language, right? right? Spoken language. English, Russian, Chinese, Swahili, Arabic, right? When you're listening to language, you hear something, right? It starts with a physical input, sound waves, right? And they hit your ears, and it's just a bunch of sound. And your mind organizes it into levels, right? If it's language, you first, if it's the language you know, first you organize it into phonemes, then you organize it into syllables, ga, ba, da, right? And then into meaningful syllables, mama, whatever. And then into morphemes and words and phrases and sentences, and then finally meaning, right? But it's not, you do not go directly from sound to meaning. Unless the sound is bzzz, then you go directly from sound to meaning, right? Onomatopoeia, but that is rare. Most of language, you have to build the sound system, then the grammatical level, then the sentential level, and then the semantic level. So you go from input of sound through many levels, phonology, morphology, syntax, finally to meaning. Now that's language, but you do exactly the same thing with music. Music hits your ears, it's also just sound waves, right? There's no organization to it out there. The organization of it is inside your mind, because animals don't organize musical information the same way, probably, right? And so you hear sound, and you organize it first into tones, and then melodies, and then rhythmic groupings, and then a kind of skeleton, like skelet, like a kind of general structure, and then some kind of meaning. But of course, it's not really meaning with music. It's some kind of emotional reaction, right? So now, and the same is true with vision. When you see something, first you organize into black and white, and then into dark and light, and then into edges and boundaries and sections, and then finally it becomes significant. You can understand that I'm looking at, people in 3 dimensions sitting at tables, VIP section, right? All of that. But that's not, right? I mean, it's just light. It's just light hitting my eyes. But my mind is what organizes it into information that I can understand, right? So cognitive science is interested in how those different modules work. That's what we're interested in. And today we're interested in how similar the music module and the language module are to each other, okay? But before we do that, we have to listen to some music, because this is about music. So, okay. Now, here's the, so just listen to some music that you may recognize, if maybe not. And think about this. Think about what your reaction is to it emotionally. And also try to follow your own process of organization. It's impossible. You can't do it. The point is, it is so automatic that you cannot even notice that you are doing it. Like understanding your native language. Like you guys speak to each other in Russian, blah, 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 spletnya, whatever, right? But you don't think about where the verb and the noun and the adjective, in your native language, it's totally automatic. When I look out here and I see 3 dimensions, it's totally automatic, right? I cannot control it. I can't even observe it. So try to observe yourself listening to this music, organizing it. And also think about this. You don't have to know music